got my parts laid out, and I'm going to start by getting a little bit of oil on my finger out of this bag, the clutch plates, and I'm just going to put a little bit of oil around here. I don't want anything going together dry, and I know we're going to get oil dribbling down and all the rest of it, and that's fine. But let's just do it because I feel like it. You might know better, and that's fine. Right, this is a flat washer, and that goes on. So we've got the plate with the little turrets on it. That one's going to sit over there for a minute. This one, I know it's very obvious, but we've got this one with the geared look to it. Bang. Right. Let's put a little bit of oil on this washer, and while we're at it, I'm going to drop that on. There's no right or wrong way, I don't believe. One side is ever so slightly sharper, and for that reason I'm going to put the slightly rounded, smoother side down. You can correct me in the comments if you want. I don't think it's going to make that much difference. Then we have this spring style washer. It's very similar to this washer here, which is, if it was to carry on, it would be conical. Okay, conical. No, it wouldn't be. It'd be curved. It'd be, you know, oculus. Okay, so we're going to put a little bit of oil on that. Now, I've got this about to go on here, and the way this is going to go on is like so. Okay, so it's splaying out. Okay, if the sides carried on, it would come to a point down here. Does that make sense? Very difficult to show. So when this drops on, the inside of this washer, the inside is going to touch the bottom. The outside is sitting up and away. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Right, so we drop that on top. Now, next thing we have is a fibrous plate to go on here. But, this is where it gets messy. With this one, you actually have two different sized plates. There's one of this smaller plate, the rest are like this. I think there's 8 in total, so 7 of this, 1 of this. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. Now, on these plates here, there should be some markings that face upwards when you're assembling it like this, and those markings go into the bike. Okay, so on these plates here there are some small markings down here. So small plate, right? So this goes over, this goes on first. This is been sitting in oil, as you know. This is going to go onto this inner clutch part, and it's going to sit. It's going to go around the outside of these washers. Okay, so it's actually going to sit against the flat part of this, leaving that oculus washer. That I'm not sure what they're called. I'm sorry, but that spring washer, so to speak. It will sit ever so slightly lower than that, okay? So, or almost, maybe it is, no, it's ever so slightly lower. So, again, the markings in this case are facing up, so that when it goes in, the markings are facing inside, towards the engine. All right. Next, we have a steel, and again, get a bit of oil, put a bit of oil on it, and yes, it's going to get covered in oil as soon as we start. Now I'm just going to do a quick tally on that. We've got 1, 2, 3, 7. Okay. Let me just move this lovely clean computer just out of harm's way. Right, let me just bring that over. So effectively we have a metal plate going on next. Now one of these metal plates, in my case, is flush on both sides, okay? Now I don't know, depending on what you got, depending on whoever got this one, where they got it from, what brand they got it, I don't know. There's differences. There are definitely some differences between this and the 1200 version. I also have the steel plates. The remainder of the steel plates have these tiny little dimples in them. Okay, and that's to help release the friction between the plates when it's trying to spread apart. So it releases some of the friction. A little bit of oil on there. Not much, just to make sure it's there. Now, on these plates that I've got here, on these fibres, we have hopefully got markings on all of them. But as well as that, we've also got these tiny little indentations, 2 of them on this set, which is different to the 1200 again, or different from this pack to the other. But I'm just going to line up all of those little numbers. No, I'm not, because I need to line up all of the little, yes I am lining up the numbers. Sorry, there's 2 lots of numbers on there. There's a number there and then another couple of digits there. So if I line them all up like that, let's just see, let's just chuck this together and see how, put it together and see how we go. There's our numbers again, and our little recesses lining up down here, so that's a good sign. I think I have enough oil on my hands now that I don't need to go dipping them back in the bag. And I've just got a bit of plastic down underneath here so that I can catch the dribbles. Dribble from the oil, not the dribble from me. Dribbling on. Yeah. Okay, where's our numbers on there? Have you worked out whether we're going to end up with a steel or a fibre yet? Come on, I did ask you. Steel. Not a fibre. Just looking for the numbers first before there we go. Remember, you can always fast forward on YouTube. Sometimes it's a good thing, isn't it? Right, got our steel. Our little numbers. Beautiful. Right up. Another steel. If you've jumped ahead in the video, I'm not sure when I edit this where this will end up, but for those of you who might have jumped in somewhere along the lines, these plates have been soaking for a little over 24 hours in oil. plastic bag of oil you can see over here. That's my way of doing it. Bob's got a better way. Bob, tell us all about your way, whoever Bob is out there. Okay, where's our numbers? Come on. Right, there we go. Did have it. Alright. Metal plate. Last one. This is the smoothie one, so for what it's worth, it's going near the outside. Come on, yell it out. Am I doing it wrong? Right. Last plate. All our numbers lining up. Just remember with this one, when it goes on, it gets turned one click. Okay, well, sorry. Let me leave it all lined up for now. That's not completely important right at this stage, but it will be soon. So anyway, let's quick clean up. Right. Okay. There are two washers, okay, that you'll come across. And if you haven't been diligent, like myself, and you haven't been really careful as to looking where they went, the smaller of the two, so same sized ID, internal diameter, external diameter, OD, is larger. The thicker, smaller washer, put that on the shaft of the gearbox, okay? If you're not taking the gearbox out, your gearbox is still in the bike, this will still be in the bike. And it sits in behind your, it's going to sit in, get in there, sit in behind the oil pump drive, okay? Does that make sense? Of course it does. Made it simple. Okay, so that smaller washer of the two, smaller one, is going to go on the shaft, on the gearbox. It's going to be the very first thing that goes on. If you took this off, if you took the oil pump drive off during your clutch change, then in behind that would be this washer, okay? If you didn't take this off, this washer will still be on the bike, hidden away in behind. I hope that helps. The larger washer, with a bit of oil, is going to sit on top of there for us. No, it doesn't sit on top of there, so don't confuse everyone, Paul. That's going to sit right on this bit of plastic for a minute. And we are going to, because I've done a big clean on this, I'm going to oil this bearing in here. Get a bit of oil in there. So I am going to quickly grab handy dandy. These are good. Just a little pipette, I think you'd call it. Suck up some of that oil, just a bit of oil. And I'm just going to put a bit in that bearing. Just moving that bearing around nice and slowly as I go. Can you all see that? Right. Let me turn this around so you can see what I'm doing. For what it's worth, I am, right, I'll make it easy. Right, let's just make sure that you're in shot. You can see this. Yep, you can see that. So, this bearing in here, just gently turning it and running a little bit of oil, because it's leaning on its side. Oil's just running around there, making sure that bearing has gone from having a little bit of noise to silent. Almost silent. Quieter than me. Right. I'm very satisfied that we have lots of oil around that bearing now, which is good. Okay, let's put that back how it was for a minute. Now, that's what we're talking about, is this large washer, okay? Now, I can see on this a little bit of marking on it, and I'm going to say that that is, okay, so that's going to fit down inside there. Oops. Inside there. Now what's going to happen? This is going to come apart to go into the bike anyway. This part here will go on first, but I'm going to show you the assembly on the bench here. Right. Next. So you know, in case you're wondering, this pump that would go on with the gear hidden away so you can't see it when you're looking from outside the bike, from the clutch side, that bushing here will fit in there, allowing these little lumps on the back here, the little nodes, the little lumpies there, to fit into these little rebates here, okay? And that, sorry, I'm just going to take that off there, that, when the clutch goes on, is what connects to there and creates the drive, okay? Now, science for you. Okay, so we have that washer that has gone in there, and we have, we've now got this basket here, and we are going to wet that surface out a little bit and just put a little bit of oil on there, because on startup we don't want to, we know we're going to get oil there, but on startup we want everything to have a little bit of lubrication, okay? So drop that, it gets oil on it, so let's make sure it's got some. Now this here, this goes in okay. Then we have this spring here. Now the raised center part, okay, so if it was like almost like a pyramid, the high point, all right, the smaller, the inside is raised, and that sits facing up, okay? So it's coming upwards like that. From the outside, fits in obviously. The reason I say that is, yes, you could put it upside down, but let's put it the right way up, so the middle is the higher point. Okay. Now, we have this part here which is going to drop in. These holes obviously line up with these little turrets. I'm going to line them all up. And I'm going to stop the camera for, no I'm not. I'm going to open this drawer here and embarrass myself with the mess. You can't see that, which is good. And I'm going to put a little bit of Loctite. Now, do not quote me on exactly which one you should be using. I'm going to be using blue with a 243. Just a little on each one. So let me do this methodically. And so that I'm not wasting half a day, let's just put them on the plastic here, give them all a little bit of a drop. Okay, not going overboard. We've got our little Allen key. And I'm just going to, well, let's start them all off in there, let's get them lined up. Sorry if I'm boring you with this, but I'm just trying to be as kind of detailed as I can, go nice and slow, hopefully allow you to see what's going on. Put a bit of light on the situation, make it even better if we can. How's that? Is that easier to see? A little bit. Right. Just get those started. Feel free to speed this up, guys, if you're familiar with the process. It's not rocket science. Okay. Right, this little process can be a little bit of a pain. It's very hard to get them all lined up, but you just sort of got to work your way down. So place it in, find out which one it's meant to drop down into. If you try and go the wrong one, it's just not going to work, okay? It won't fit. So you're going to have to work out which one's which. You'll drop it down in there, get them all lined up. Now, trick. You must offset by you must offset by 1 notch. Okay, the last plate gets turned 1 notch. Okay. In this case, it gets turned when it's sitting this way, clockwise, 1 step. Okay, so you can see I had them all lined up before there. All lined up. I move it around ever so slightly, and it will slide in there and line up. Well done. Now, the last part of the puzzle will be, I'm going to show you now, that will go in there, sits in the top, okay? This part here is the part that gets pressed by the hydraulic from your clutch. Just remember, your clutch oil is not brake fluid, okay? It is different, so don't put brake fluid in your clutch reservoir. It probably tells you on top what it is, but it'll be a hydraulic LS something or other fluid, so check that out, make sure you get the right one. Probably not really common out there either, so make sure you're talking to BMW for the right product. It's not the kind of thing you're going to find. Look for other oils that are going to be suitable. Off the more common places. I'm just going to, because I've washed all these bearings out, I'm just going to put a little bit of, dip that in oil, turn it around in the oil a little bit, get it all nice and lubed up, because I just want to keep all of this together. And so I just want to make sure it's all lubed. Right. It's turning, absolutely no, can't feel any notchiness. Sounds good. There's no sound, so that's good. So that's what we want. Nice, beautiful running bearing in there, as there should be everywhere. Right, a little bit of oil on the shaft because it's on my hands, and it might as well be on this instead of a cloth rag. Now, this is what I love about BMW. Their tolerances are so sweet that, look at that, just when it's right, it just settles in there on its own. It's just, look at that, beautiful. Well done, BMW. German engineering at its finest. Righto. Okay, so that, now remember those Allen key little bolts, there's 6 of them. I have not tightened them up yet. I will come back and I will endeavour to tell you what they should be. The tension on those will play a part in the clutch and how it works and how it operates, so that needs to be right. So I will come back to it. Right, I'm going to move that one aside, put that over there with all its parts, other parts, right, and I am going to start told a lie. So the 1200 has that, well, my 1200 clutch has this raised washer. I really should learn what it is, but I don't believe that it has. Let's have a look here. So we've got our steels. This clutch is also in really good condition. It measures up well as well. Okay, look, caught me out again. The difference with this clutch is it didn't have the flat washer that went on first underneath this slightly raised washer. That's the difference. So I'm not sure. Let's just have a look. And the other thing is, these plates don't have any of the little dimpling in them, which I believe they did later on to help release. Okay, if you missed it the first time, all the plates are in a bag, inside another bag. So double bag. What this allows you to do is you can wobble them around a little bit, just gently so you don't pierce the bag. That's the reason for the double bag, just in case you do. Now I will leave these overnight. I'm going to go and have an early night tonight. It's 9:45, because tomorrow is a big day, and we're going to get the smoker out. And we've got some pork ribs going to go in the smoker at about 9 o'clock in the morning for about a 6 o'clock dinner. So they're already in the fridge and they are basting in their respective coatings, and we have a couple of sets of ribs, much the same as these clutch plates are going to do overnight. So the clutch is going to be the last thing to go in the bike after the gearbox, and I'm hoping the gearbox goes in there tomorrow morning. But by tomorrow afternoon, these will be ready to go into the clutch and into the bike. And we can play around with the 1300 version and the 1200 version, or the 1200S version that was in the bike, plus the 1300 version. Now, I have a better chance that the 1300 one is a 1300 one because of the a few different things about that one that point towards it being the actual 1300. The original 1200, so I'm just going to put those clutch plates in this here just so that it does leak anywhere. And I will reuse that oil. That oil's going in the bike. It's clean. I've given all those plates. It's just soaking into it. So there's nothing wrong with it. We won't be wasting half a litre of oil. So let's get part 3 over here. These have all been cleaned down. As I said, I will give these plates on the edge a quick going over. Just to make sure that there is a little bit of surface mode on that. Just from sitting, I suppose. So, it's just wiping off pretty much. So I'll sort that out before they go in. We've got our parts over here ready to go. All of these. Oh, look at it. Found it. Oh, there you go. That one's a bit different. It's got little teeth in it. So that one goes on first. Another lie from me. So that goes on. Then that washer. Then our springy washer. And then our plates. I think what I'll do is get a little bit of oil. Just get these bearings sitting in some oil. I'm going to hurt them. Good for them. Just so they're all done. Screw. And the bearing, there's a drop this bearing in there as well. Just looking for any surface rust before that. Awesome. That's good. Came back, got the smoker going, and we've got a couple of loads of pork ribs going. So I'll put a photo in there just to upset a few of you. A couple of vegans out there. Anyway, right. We are about to assemble. I'm about to assemble the K1200S clutch that was in the bike when I got it, and I'm sorry, but I really don't know the history of the bike to the extent that I would like. And one of the things that doesn't concern me but is actually a good thing, and I mentioned it earlier, is it has these little lugs, cutaways here, whereas my understanding was up until 2009, so 2005 through 2008, the clutch basket had either little recesses in here. I think I mentioned earlier that they were little nodules sticking up. I think it's the other way around. I think the clutch has little pinholes in it, and the oil drive, which fits on the back of the clutch, would have had little raised pins that locating pins. So I'm not sure which way around that is, because obviously I don't have one. So someone out there will know. Someone can put that in the comments below if they feel that it's important. Anyway, What I have is this type here, and I was quite excited because I actually thought that someone has done an upgrade on this clutch. However, the main piece that pushes the that works from the hydraulic point pressure thingy, it's definitely the earlier model, so it only has the single cutaway for the oil, and I'll show a single channel down it, and I'll show you that. But also the earlier clutch in the K1200S had, I'll pull it out of this one, I'll show you. So this piece here that I've just taken out of the 1300 has a channel down this side and a channel down this side. So two oil galleries, okay, or oil feed galleries. On this one here that I had in the bike, it only had a single feed, okay. On the earlier model, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was just this part without the sort of, call it feed tube or gallery. So I think this gave it more direction for the oil to go further before it sort of sprayed it out. Whereas when it was cut off and you just had this top part, the oil sort of went down and went where it wanted to go. And I think that was sort of the first improvement, was to add this extension with a single channel down it, which I've got, and then to go to this one here in the 1300 with the double slot. Anyway, I don't have all the answers. This is not a documentary on the BMW 1200 because clearly I don't know. But anyway, so the good thing about this, and I'm just gonna, this is the 26 tooth jobby. No, it's not. This is the 25 tooth. So this is the original one that goes with the bike, and I'm gonna stick with that because they look very similar, but I don't know whether maybe they are. I'll do a couple of measurements. I might put the later model one, the 26 tooth, which increases the bar pressure, the oil pressure through the engine, which you kind of need. Makes sense to have the increased pressure if you are feeding more oil in. Otherwise, you're not going to get the pressure you need to force it down both channels. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, think about it. And come back to me and ask another question, and I'll explain it in more detail. So I'll just do a couple of measurements, make sure these teeth are going to fit into the current drive chain down to the oil pump. If they are the same tooth and they're going to fit in, then I'll use the later model one. If I have to change the chain out, then I'll keep the original, and I'll probably run the single channel down. I don't want to mess too much with the oil feeds and things. Anyway, I've got two different clutches. The later model clutch, the 1300 that I have here that I was hoping to put in, it's got a little bit more chatter and it's got a little bit more movement around the springs, which I don't really like. So at this stage I'm going to run with the 1200S, the original clutch in there. And then I'm going to play around with a couple of minor alterations, and I'll call them minor, and I'll talk about that in a later video. But at this stage I'm just going to put the 1200 one back together so you can see that going back together, how I put it back together, and then some of you out there are probably going to correct me and tell me that I'm doing something wrong, and that's great. Please let me know. I reckon I can swap a clutch out on this bike in probably around about an hour to an hour and a half. Probably less. So it doesn't bother me to put it in, give it a run, see how it goes. I can try swapping the basket out of the 1300 into the 1200, things like that. I'll swap them around before I put them in the bike and just have a look. But for now, enough talk. Let's just get on and build this 1200S clutch pack to the best of my ability and knowledge, based on the parts that I have, which may or may not be original 1200. It may be a later model, as I say, with these little cutaways. I don't know. The other thought was that I've seen out there comments is that the earlier one was a lot lighter basket, not the darker basket. So anyway, whoops, just dump that there. Let's get on with it. So I've oiled that bearing down inside there. Did that last night before I went off to Beardy Buys, and so we're ready to put it together. So let's move that out of our way for a second. Put that there. We're going to get plastic here. We're going to put that on there. We're going to open our bag of bits that we've been soaking in oil for not quite 24 hours. Definitely not 24 hours because it's now 12 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. So it's been in there for 14 hours, 15 hours, 16 hours, 16 hours. It's pretty good. Now, what we want to do is just see what we've got here. Okay. So I've got a little bit of oil on my hands and I'm just going to run a bit of oil around there just to get a bit of oil underneath there. As I mentioned earlier, we want a bit of oil on everything before, so when the bike kicks off, we don't have to wait for the oil pressure to come up. Okay, this one's a little bit different, but it does have this this washer as well. Just a little bit of oil on there. This one's got the little teeth on it. It's the same both sides. Doesn't matter, in my opinion, which way it goes. It's got a little marking here, so I'm going to put that up because that marking would have been caused by this other ring that goes on, other washer, spring washer. So, first things first, got that piece, we drop. Now, there are some little cutaways here, little oil areas there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place these so they don't cover those little, so the washer covers it, but I'm not, that's not coming off now. So the little tabs don't completely cover that. So rightly or wrongly, that's what I'm doing. Next thing, we have this washer. Now remember this one here is effectively, it's cupped, okay? So it's if it was to carry on down, if the sides were wider, it would be the same as this one here. So it would form an oculus or a cone shape kind of thing. So again, we are. Let me draw you a real quick picture. Just, I know it's really hard to see in the video with this, and I want to make it quite clear how I understand it. So here we go. Let me just make sure you're in shot here. Whoops. Okay. So looking at this here, okay, it's sitting on the bench like that. So we've got, okay, it's sitting like that. Whoops. Okay, and then you've got this piece at the top. There's that piece at the top, and you've got all these. Okay, that's these lines here, okay? I know my drawing's pretty bad. Right, so that's how we've got it sitting. We put the first flat washer, that washer there, that first one, went straight down. The next one, the spring one that I'm talking about, it goes on, and I'm going to exaggerate this so you can see, it's going to go on like that. Can you see that? Let me just zoom in. Come on, Paul. Does that make sense? So it's going on like that. So if you look at it on the side, you can see the whole washer. That's like that. All right. Now, just so you know, we're talking about this one that I've just dropped on. I know, I'm going overboard. Okay, it's very thin, but if you were to expand it, it's going on. See that? If I put it down there and I put my finger on the edge, see what it does? It lifts it up. So me pushing on the edge is me pushing down like that. Okay, so that's, does that explain it? Oops, hang on. Me pushing on the edge of the washer like that, does that explain it? I'm pushing down like I'm pushing down on this point. All right, so that's the way it's going to go on. Down, on. Wow, that was a whole lot of energy. Yeah. Right, it's been explained to the best of my ability. Righto, let's crack on. Next, zoom you out a little bit. You got that? Can you see that? Good. Right. Next, the first fibre plate. So we have metal, and we have fibre. We have two different sized fibrous plates, okay? The wider one, which you'll have 7 of, and a little skinny one, a slightly skinnier one, which you'll have 1 of, okay? The skinny one, let's put the wide one back in the bag. Let's find the markings on this one. This has got markings in one spot only. And those markings need to face up in this situation. There we go. All right. Down here there's a little bit of writing. Can you see that? Of course you can't. A little bit of writing there, raised. That first one with the writing facing up, because when it goes into the engine it's going to be facing the engine, the center of the bike. The writing's going to face the center of the bike. That is going to go down first. This skinny one goes on first. It sits outside of those two, the flat washer and the spring washer that we've just put on. It sits around the outside so it can sit onto this plate, okay? Right, I hope that's clear. So make sure it's sitting out there. And then we have a metal plate. Just going to put a little bit of oil on there with my fingers. No right way or wrong way, although I always find that one edge is, because they're probably stamped out, one edge has always got a slight round to it, and I don't think you have to, but I kind of like to have them all going the same way. So the next one on is, oh, it doesn't fit. Come on, get on there. A metal plate. Now, all of your fibrous plates are going to be the same, and I'm just going to lose a little bit of oil off this because I found last night when I was doing the first one that excessive amount of oil on there make it very difficult to turn them. So I'm going to have to run the bike for a bit when I start it up. So again, I'm going to I'll start the bike up and run it to allow some of the oil to spin out of it before I try throwing it into gear. Because I think it's going to go with a clunk the first time because there's going to be a lot of oil in there, excessive amount of oil, because of my excessiveness. And it's probably going to be quite a lot of immediate load on it the first time I drop it into gear. Okay. Oh man. Okay, I think therefore it is. Wow. This one's really difficult to make out the markings on it, particularly now that I have soaked it overnight. Alright, give me a second. Let me just grab my handy dandy microscope, magnifying glass. Oh, sorry. And I might put my old eyes on. My magnifying glass eyes. Alright. Magnifying glass that you can't see through because it's covered in grease and oil. Oh, now it's even worse. That's not helping. This will probably just melt the thing. Let's see what happens. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Probably $2 worth up the shop, from the $2 shop. Cheapy, but so good to have. Okay, I'm just going to scan around there before. Ah. I've never. Alright, found it. Tiny little markings on here. They go facing up and they're in line with the other set. Okay, so the first one, and I want them all to line up. Sounds silly, but gee, that's hard to read because the one next to it has been sitting next to one. This one would have been the, it's really strange. Someone's had this wrong because this one here has been sitting next to it. I can see the writing, the raised writing here, and I can actually make out the letters onto the next one. So someone's had the wrong one around, or the right one around the wrong way. Good on you. Thanks heaps for making that easy. All right. See, it wasn't all my fault. Right. Blame someone else. Right. dragging a bit of that oil off there. That was easy. Right, there it is. So another fibre. I had a little bit of surface marking. I don't know if you can see that on there, and I had a look at it, and it's not even like you can't really feel it. It's just been sitting, I think, outside, and it's got a little tiny bit of surface. Call it surface rust, but I'm not going to fluff around with it. I don't think it's going to affect anything. Right, so let's get that one on. I was going to get it off with some steel wool, and I decided against it in the end. I thought not necessary, it doesn't affect anything, and it's just literally on the surface, and I don't think it's from what I've done. I think it's just, again, someone else's fault. It's been out of the bike without a bit of oil on it, so okay, not a big deal. Right, so next fibre plate. Remember, all those words will line up, markings of words line up. Right, metal plate. Come on. Now what I found was interesting with this is when you're measuring, I took measurements for all of the plates and all of the clutch plates, so the fibres and the metals, thinking that I'd be smart and be able to add them all up and or check each one. There's my markings there. Check each one and make sure that the thickness was within tolerance, but I didn't actually find any tolerance measurements for each individual plate. What I found was an overall pack dimension. So when you put all the fibres and the metals together, there's a measurement they like you to have, and it was very, very close to that, very close. So I was very happy with that, and that was on both clutches too. So I'm picking someone's had recently put the new stack of plates in the 1300S, and also this 1200S. It hadn't seen many miles, many kilometres on it on the new one when I got it. So just double checking. Yep, there you go. Some little markings there. I know you don't care. Show you anyway. Sharing is caring. Okay, next one. Again, shout out if you think I'm doing something that I could do better or doing something wrong. Drop a comment. You know, like, constructive criticism is welcome. Straight out criticism doesn't help anyone. But I am wide open to ideas and suggestions and corrections, because this is about helping others. As YouTube has helped me, I've just really struggled with this bike to find, there's some excellent videos out there, some very, very good videos, and probably one of the best ones out there, and it's in a foreign language. I think it's Russian. So whatever it is, thank you very much in Russian for doing the video. It was helpful, but unfortunately I don't speak Russian, so that wasn't so good. But I'm just hoping that you can glean something from this video, from this series, and you can check it against the other videos. You can check it against your manual, whatever. But sometimes, as manuals, as good as they are, a picture tells 1,000 words, and one of my videos is probably 1,000,000 words, as you found out. So, and again, this is not a how-to, all right? But this is just with the intention of just helping someone maybe see something, and it might be that you're deciding whether you want to do this or not. Trust me, if Nuffy can do it, anyone can do it. This is just Lego for big kids. Lego for big kids, except they give you a tool called a screwdriver instead of just putting the blocks together. All you're doing is using a few tools to put your Lego set together, and it's spinning at 11,000 revs underneath you, as opposed to a Lego set. So yeah, make your own choices, but sometimes it's just nice to know how things go together. Right, next we have, so we finish off with that. If you haven't finished off with a fibre plate, you've got a problem. Next, we drop this over the top. What am I missing? Oh, that's it. Now, one of the things I need to do at this stage is I'm going to put these bolts in. Now, on the previous one, I put the bolts in and I put some Loctite on, which was kind of silly because I hadn't found out what the torque setting was, which means I'm going to have to take them out again, put some more Loctite on them before I tighten them up. So I apologise for that. I know there's some of you rolling your eyes going, what an idiot. I'm pretty close. That's why they call me Nuffy. Right, so I'm just going to put these in. No, I'm not, because that won't work. See, Nuffy. I'm going to flip that up. Wow. Stop talking, Paul. Right, I am now going to flip the clutch pack over. Don't put the screws in from the wrong side. Dear, dear. Right. We're now going to put this little spring in. Just give it a little bit of oil. Oh. Running around there. Again, rightly or wrongly, give me your thoughts. As far as I'm concerned, put a little bit of oil on everything. It's going to get some oil on it. And what it doesn't need is going to be thrown out to the side of the engine anyway when it's spinning. So if you put too much in there, it's going to dissipate as it spins. Oh, that's a big word. It's going to get flung off. Right. Check as we go. That looks dirty, but it's not. Or is it? It's clean. Right, then we have this U-Butte. Don't know if that needs oil on it, but I'm putting oil on it. Look at that. Oh, shiny. Right, we drop that in there. Again, don't look at our picture, it's the other way around. So, this is going on with the centre being the highest point. So it's coming effectively up like that, okay? If that doesn't make sense, go back to Lego. Right, a little bit of oil on this part here, makes it shiny. Drop that in there. Now what I want to do now is get my gloves clean. Cleanish, because I don't want oil all over these bolts when I put them in, because that won't help the Loctite, will it? Someone's going to tell me, oh, the Loctite just pushes the oil aside. I don't know. Anyway, these are just going in loosely at this stage. Remember what I said, I'm coming back to tighten these up on both clutches once I get the recommended torque setting, and I will take them out. Once I have the recommended torque setting, I will take them out. I will Loctite them with, I have Loctite 243, which is the blue. It's what I have, it's what I'm using. You might want to use something else. That's what I have and that's what I'm using. You may not want to put any in at all. You might want to just put some oil in there. I don't know. Do your research. I don't know the answer to that yet. I will check in the manual and see if it says to put any Loctite. I haven't yet found anything about rebuilding these. I get the feeling that BMW like to sell these as a whole part, replaceable as opposed to repairable, but that doesn't really make sense, does it? Because you would just go and buy a pack of clutch plates and things, which is pretty common. So I will have to investigate further in the video, in the manual, the electronic manual, because so far I have not found an exploded view of this clutch. Okay, so I know there are some torque settings that does talk about these in there somewhere, so I will find those. I will come back, take them out, put Loctite on, put them back into the right tension. Bob's your uncle, Mary's your aunt. Job done. Right. Let's move that just to the side here. Let's get out the clutch basket, get our washer, bit of oil. Now, don't panic too much because this has to come out to put it all back in the bike anyway. But I am going to, see there's an outer ring there and an inner ring. I would suggest that they were facing down. I don't know, don't think it really matters. They're not worn into it, they're just stained to the metal from sitting there. So we put our washer in the back there. Now, I am smart enough to know that this one here has a mark that I almost cleaned off completely. Yeah. For some reason that one there is marked, and I think that's the one that lines up with. So when I took this out of the bike, I marked on the side of the clutch basket with a what we call a Nico pen, permanent marker, and I also put a mark down the side of these plates, and luckily that little mark has stayed there. So that made it very easy to line all of those up. Now, I know, I've got to move one round, one click. Bear with me. So, the last plate at the top. Last one of the fibrous plates needs to turn. Now, I think it's clockwise, that worked. If I go anti-clockwise, it doesn't. Oh, it does work, okay. So, anyway, so they were lined up. I'm going to go one step clockwise, and that seems to locate nicely, as opposed to if I go one anti-clockwise. Seems to work. Anyway, no. Right, that's in there. Now, something doesn't feel quite right. Let's just have a look. Right. Right, that's together. Now, let's get our other parts out that we need. Right. I'm down on plastic. I explained earlier, so the 1200, okay, single slot down this, just a single slot down there. That was one of the improvements with the One of the things that was improved on the later model, got our bearing. That bearing's going to sit in the middle there. It's all been sitting in a bag of oil, that's going to sit there. Your one might not have this shaft on it. Okay, that's the earlier model, or earlier version. Alright, let's check the bag. What are we missing? 2 goldfish. We'll leave them in there. Righto. Right, job's a good one. Let's do what we've got to do. Get some oil out of this bag, which is still fresh and clean looking. And I'm just going to go and make sure that we've got oil in all of these places where we think it's important. So I will just show you what I'm going to do. This is what I would do, just dribble a bit around there. Make sure we've got a bit running down into each gear and around it. Yes, I'm going to get dribbles and whatever else going on, but for the sake of about probably 20 ml of oil, who cares? I can wipe that off the floor, and I'll be happier knowing that I've got some oil in there ready to go for when I start the bike for the first time. First of all, I'm going to take this nut off, and then I'm going to take this washer off. Now I'm going to put them on the other side of the bike, because they will end up on the clutch side of the bike. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this gasket, clean hands, fresh gloves, put that on there, make sure that's sitting nicely on there. I've oiled the various recesses where the end of these shafts are going to locate into. Put a little bit of oil there. The end of the shafts here I've already got. You can never have enough, can you? Let's put a little bit of oil around those so they go in nicely. Bearings and bits and bobs have got what they need on them, and I think my lily rag. Okay, so we're now ready to lift this up. I've cleaned the surface of the gearbox, and I want to go in as quickly as I can. There's going to be some oil in here that's going to want to dribble to the bottom, and it's going to dribble over this mating surface. I can't help that. I'm going to put it in, get it ready. I'm going to try and keep that as clean as I possibly can before I stuff it in there. Now, one of the things I can do to help that, knowing which is going to be the bottom, is what I'm doing. You don't necessarily have to do this. Right at the very bottom, I've got a bit of tape. Any oil, hopefully it will capture it within that area. Just before I push it all the way in, I'll just peel that tape. It will create a little dam that will hold some of the oil back. Any oil that does go over the top is going to go over the tape rather than the mating surface. Best I can do. Is it necessary? Probably not. Am I doing it? Obviously, yes I am. Why would you do that? Because I'm in nothing. Right. Wish me luck. There's nothing. spoke about. Stage. Just want to make sure that chain is able to go over the top of that shaft on the other side. So just using the shaft coming out on the clutch side, you can hold that side up, bring it through, makes it a little bit easier. I know because I just did it for the first time. Now, we'll clean it. Before I put the clutch in, I set it to the neutral position. And so far, I've noticed is it appears that everything's come up against those two surfaces nicely. I'm really happy with that. That's good. Very happy with that. Okay, so that wasn't too hard after all to get that back in. Now we're going to add a little bit of oil on that surface there down the bottom. Can't really help that. This lever is going to come off. We're going to drop the oil filter. Put a new one on there. But I just don't want to get oil soaking into all these braided lines and things as I already have. Braided covers, I should say. And you certainly don't want it down on the muffler, because that would be smelly and smoke. Okay, so quite happy with that. That went in quite easy. Oh no, lights run out of power. Okay, so that's good because we've just got that done. What I'm going to do now is grab the bolts, and I'm going to get them in there, and we are going to find the torque setting for those before we go too far.